विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से अपना एक रुतबा खड़ा किया है और भारत इसके बाद के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साफ, मैं हमेशा कहता आया हूं, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया टुमारो।
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to this 19th edition of World Education Summit. In 2003, when we started with the first edition of WES, the World Education Summit, we have come a very long way. In the past 17 years, rather now it is the 18th year running, this World Education Summit has become one of the most sought after, one of the most preferred platforms for knowledge exchange in the sector of education. Over the years, it has become one of the preferred destination for policymakers, for educationists, for academicians, sector experts, international experts to come on a common platform and discuss and deliberate upon the emerging trends, opportunities, and tools in the world of education. The COVID pandemic for the past 1.5 years have wreaked havoc throughout the world. No sectors of the economy has been left untouched by the impact of the COVID pandemic, including the education sector. And what was the result? Overnight, from physical classroom mode, we went to virtual mode. This transition from physical to the virtual took a tectonic shift, and this shift is now going to be a permanent shift. Today, on the first day of this 19th edition, when we start the discussion at the morning at 10 o'clock, we have been joined by very eminent panelists, and we'll be joined by eminent panelists throughout the day as well as tomorrow and day after this 3-day session. We'll be discussing and deliberating the shift from physical to online, the shift from physical to virtual, and the new normal in the world of education. Would hybrid be the new normal? If it is going to be the new normal, what technologies would be there? What are the current trends? And what is the future of hybrid learning? This is the topic of this panel number 3 of this afternoon session of WES. Welcome to this 19th edition of World Education Summit. I am joined by a very eminent panel here. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sandeep Sancheti. He is Provost, Marwadi University, Rajkot, Gujarat. Professor Dr. Vikas Singh, Vice Chancellor, ITM University, Raipur. Professor O.R.S. Rao, Vice Chancellor, ICFAI University, Ranchi, Jharkhand. Mr. Ravindra Yatagiri, Vice President, IT and eLearning, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun, Uttarakhand. And finally, from the industry side, we have an international expert also here in the form of Mr. Nick Benwell from Blackboard. A very warm welcome to all of you once again. A very interesting topic indeed. The future of hybrid learning, the emerging technologies in hybrid learning. What would be the scope? What would be the opportunities? The use of appropriate technologies, the evolution of remote teaching. So this and many more points. Without taking much of your time, I will go now the panel discussion open. I will invite Professor Sancheti, Provost of Marwadi University, to give his perspective on the topic. Professor Sancheti.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. Congratulations to ELETS for celebrating the 19th version of the World Education Summit. We are very happy to be part of it. On behalf of everyone in the panel, I welcome all the audience and the organizers for this particular session. The session has been given a very nice theme, that is the use of appropriate technologies as first part. And the second part is evolution from emergency remote teaching. These are the two subsets you can say for the topic for this particular webinar. I'll try to cover it in some 7-8 minutes from my end, giving you a little bit of brief of what I think about it. The topic is obviously hybrid learning. I do not necessarily call it as a hybrid learning. For me, it can be a virtual learning, it can be face-to-face learning, it can be a blended learning, it can be a flexible learning, it can also be a high-flex learning. There are many names given by many users, may be appropriate in their context, but a user should not worry about what is this new name. I think more or less they are similar names, is what I'll say. I prefer to use flexible because hybrid or flexible combined together gives me education which is anytime, anywhere, any language, any mode, any number of times, various other things which are the features of this particular thing. And therefore, I call it flexible. Flexible also because at any age also I can do it, not at 18 or 20, 25. I can study anything which I like at 50 or 60 or 70 also. There are a large number of flexibilities which are there in this, and therefore hybrid learning is going to stay here or is going to be in vogue. It is very obvious that we use appropriate technologies for supporting our life. Everything we do in life, whether we are having a car or whether we are having a mobile device, we use the appropriate one in the context. Today, probably all of us are forced or required to do smartphones because otherwise we will not be able to connect very well. Some time back, the mobile phones were of different nature, only communication, which was oral or voice communication, was sufficient for that. So appropriate technology will always be important in your life in whatever context you are working or you're trying to deliver goods. So it is very appropriate that in the context of education, we have adopted technology significantly like computers or internets, but they were not omnipresent. They were not being used equivocally. They were being promoted in a certain way, but people were not very receptive to it. Maybe the fault was that the access was not there. Maybe the fault was the teachers themselves were not very well versed. Maybe the fault was that the students probably thought they didn't like it. And maybe there was somewhere in the back of everyone's mind that the education has to be face-to-face. Nothing wrong with face-to-face. We have been doing it traditionally. But education has also evolved as education 1.0 to 2.0 and 3.0 and 4.0. 1.0 was primarily Gurukul, 2.0 was mainly when the books and the technology to print books came. And then, of course, computers and internet made it 3.0. The 4.0 is nothing but student-centric education. And student-centric education basically means students will take it as he or she pleases. And therefore, technology's intervention is something very, very essential in my opinion. Without technology, education 4.0 cannot exist in my opinion. I think the same is being said about industry 4.0, and there may be many other versions which are there in other domains. So education 4.0 uses appropriate technology. And I can tell you later, maybe not right now, that what will be the appropriate technology 5-10 years down the line. Today it is not there, but I'll answer that later. But right now I'd like to say that education 4.0 is something which emerged possibly because of the COVID last year. All of us, sudden we got a shock and there was an emergency to do something using technology. But very soon, within a couple of months, NEP came on 29th of July. And NEP quelled all the doubts that whether we have to use technology or not, whether we have to use hybrid mode or not. I think answers were big yes from the NEP 2020. And therefore, though the emergence of hybrid may be said to be maybe forced, but now it is well accepted that this will be there. Yes, we understand all will not be equal in making use of that, but it is all done, and it is said, as we were discussing prior to the panel discussions also amongst us, that most of us are like business or you can say the work as a status quo. That's purely because of the technology. So I'll just take you to through one or two examples to convince you that this hybrid learning is going to be beneficial to all of us. And by the way, these are supported by a report which UGC has made public as a report 15 days back, and I was very fortunate to be part of it, where we have worked out that how hybrid or blended learning will be supported, how it will be useful, what will be the do's and don'ts, what will be the roles of teachers and students, and how everyone can take benefit out of that. So I would request the audience, if they would like to learn a little bit more, probably they can find many references here and there, but there is one at the UGC website, which is also trying to push for such things, because we never know what might come again. And once again, we might be forced to use other means to do the teaching learning. We don't want any academic losses to anyone. So if I take first example, and I try to tell you that let's forget about the classes, because everyone is taking classes through Zoom or whatever other means, and StreamYard seems to be a new avenue for them if ELTS will allow that. So there are many such avenues which are there. And obviously, Blackboard and maybe their competitors in form of Canvas and others are also doing their bit. But let's go to the domain which is generally not talked about in these kind of forums: the laboratory work, the skill work. And by the way, there are no substitutions to such things because you need to do hands-on work regularly, and very much required in certain professions, which may be in engineering or hotel management or medicine, or maybe there are many others, agriculture, etc. So how do we go about that in a hybrid mode, in a laboratory part? Now, let me tell you, there is a concept of virtual laboratory. There may be more names given to it, which was initiated by the government around 10 years back, rather more than 10 years back. And what it does is it makes all experiments, all equipments accessible remotely through their electronic control. There are various ports in all the equipments and devices which can be controlling them in terms of operation. And therefore, you can use these labs 24/7. Every day in a week and every hour in a day, you can use it. Whereas currently in Indian context, the laboratory usage is very poor. And the top best part of it is you can use the costly equipment, though it may not be there in your own institution. It reduces the cost, it improves the efficiency, it improves the access, it increases the, you can say, the use part which is there. And the best is that it also makes you do your experiments regularly, which sometimes in our context may be a group of 3 or 4, and you can repeat it as many times as you want. And the last best thing about it is you can hardly damage any equipment, because the software will be able to control it. So I'm not saying it's a software simulation. I'm saying there is a software which is controlling the equipment, which will not allow it to go beyond a certain voltage, current, temperature, pressure, whatever it may be, and therefore equipment will be safe. So everything is ensured, whichever is required for doing a very successful experimentation or a skill thing, which is there. So that is one thing. The second example I'd like to give, and with that I'll close, is on the examination. There's a lot of talk about examinations being done online, not good, cheating. Cheating may be one's mentality that they want to do it, you can't help it. Cheating cannot be removed even if it is a physical mode. And therefore, let's not expect that someone will give an 100% answer to a given problem. It has never happened in our life. Nothing has been solved fully and continues to be remaining so. It won't be possible. But examinations are going to go through a sea change. Today, if I'm doing a proctored examination and if I'm doing cheating, I will be caught and there'll be a proof and there'll be a technological system which will tell me whether I was right or wrong, and accordingly I'll be punished. Similarly, technology will also enable me to do many things. For example, I don't have to sit in the examinations. I can stand and give the examination. I don't have to write the examination. I can speak in the examination. My examination can be simply an audio examination, which may be much faster and maybe easier to correct also. There is no problem. And if I'm a handicapped person, for whatever reason, I cannot write well or write speedily, I think speaking examination will be something very, very good for me. So see the impact of technology, how it can change some of the conventional things which were there for decades and decades. The labs were never outside the classroom, and so was the examination. Both have changed. So I'll stop here right now, Mishra sir, but I like to give later or maybe the end, whenever I'm getting opportunity, what might be some of the new avenues, what might be the new and appropriate technologies down the line after 10 years. That answer I'll give you later. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sancheti. Well explained and well elaborated the concept of virtual laboratory and the concept of virtual examination. Because we are in a transitionary phase, the public at large is yet to come to terms with these two terms. But as you have very rightly explained, the benefits of virtual laboratory, whether in terms of giving universal access or even in terms of giving multiple access, or in terms of efficiency of the laboratories, or in terms of causing no damages to the equipments, or in terms of other technological advantages of these virtual labs. Definitely a path-breaking innovation, and we do look forward to more and more adoption of such technologies. Then you discussed about the paradox of online learning. Yes, last year, when my own son went virtual examination, it was a cultural shock for us also, because we have never heard of a virtual examination from the confines of our rooms. Somehow we were not addicted to them, or we are not accustomed to them. But yes, you are true, with the help of technology, it is fairly possible to conduct foolproof examination without any leakages, without any pilferages. And in case there is any leakage or pilferage, then it is very easy with the help of technology to identify the gaps and to address the gaps. So well said, Professor Sancheti. Thank you once again. And we will, of course, come back to you with a couple of questions as we move on here. I would now like to invite Professor Dr. Vikas Singh, is the Vice Chancellor, ITM University, Raipur. Professor Vikas Singh, your views on hybrid learning, the emergence of new technologies, and the way forward. Dr. Vikas.
Thank you, Mishra ji, for inviting me to this forum. And I congratulate Ravi ji and Elets for this 19th edition of World Education Summit. It's really a pleasure for me to be sharing this elite panel. And on such an interesting topic, because this is hybrid learning is something which is shaping up for last 15 months. And when I'm saying 15 months, with every passing month we are getting new changes, new development to this hybrid learning environment. And something which we have achieved over the last 15 months, this is, as rightly mentioned by Sancheti sir, this is irreversible. Before the pandemic, the online teaching was only limited to 3% of the students in higher education. And suddenly from 3%, we have moved to 100%. And even after pandemic, we are not going to go back to 3% to those levels. This is going to stay. Likewise, acceptance has increased tremendously with the students. Coursera has seen 600% jump in enrollments. edX has seen 1000% jumps in enrollments, 10-time enrollments in courses. Same is happening with SWAM platform. So not only teachers, students have also accepted this change. And because of this wide acceptance, I can very confidently say that we are not going to go back to pre-pandemic levels. Whenever the pandemic finishes, it can be in 3 months, it can be in 6 months, or we can continue for 1 more year. We are not aware. Nobody is aware about the future. So in this fluid status, it's very essential that hybrid learning should be understood in more depth. And there are certain observations which I would like to show you, Mishra ji. My first observation is that because of this COVID, for the first time we are seeing huge inequalities, in higher education. There are certain institutions, certain universities which have quickly adopted the online education medium. And when I'm saying this, I mean the faculty members were quickly trained. They quickly purchased synchronous, asynchronous IT tools, purchased learning management system, LMS, took membership. And because of that, those institutions, including ours, we have created a mark and we have ensured that learning is not affected. And when I'm saying learning is not affected, I'm talking about the earlier assessment evaluation methods, which Sancheti Saab, has, just recently mentioned. But I believe that, there is one larger question. When we are saying hybrid learning, when we are saying blended learning, when we are saying that the focus has to shift from teacher-centric to learner-centric education, then why even today we are keeping the responsibility of knowledge creation with the teachers only? And even though we have moved to hybrid learning, still the expectation of parents, the expectation of students is majorly that there will be lectures. And if we talk of lectures on online platform, then of course, teachers have their challenges. How to keep these grown-up kids engaged, how to ensure that, they are keeping their videos on and things like that. But I think, for premier institutions, for good universities, those who have adopted the technology quickly and trained the teachers quickly, I think they have moved ahead now. They are actually using, kind of flipped teaching. They are kind of using a very different asynchronous teaching now. We share the entire content, downloadable content, PPTs, lectures, notes, videos, pre-recorded videos, with the students beforehand. And then we expect that the students will go through this, read this, and then come to class having certain idea. And the lecture time would be actually used for constructive discussion, for peer learning, for asking questions, looking for solutions from teachers. But is it happening all across all higher education colleges? There are 50,000 higher education institutions. There are 1,000 plus universities. So all in all, there are 51,000, higher education institutions. Are all of them using a good learning management system? Are all of them using good edtech technologies? Or still they are using only the lecture medium, using the online classes? Because if that is happening, then I would say that we have missed the opportunity. This is a big opportunity, I believe. Big opportunity for higher education to move from centuries of face-to-face classroom learning, face-to-face physical classroom learning, from that medium to actually moving towards blended digital learning. And those institutions, those who are not adopting technology, not purchasing LMS systems, not training their teachers extensively, aggressively, then they are going to miss the bus. And I'm quite confident that this inequality after a year or after 2 years, would be affecting the sustenance of higher education institutions. I personally see that because of this pandemic, some islands of expertise, some islands of good education will emerge, and the students will be, attracted towards those institutions. And lot of colleges, standalone colleges, especially engineering colleges, other colleges, they are facing challenges regarding their admissions and challenges regarding ensuring delivery of content. I think challenge is going to become much bigger for those institutions if they do not adopt technology and actually start using hybrid learning, blended learning in the true sense. And teachers are not using the platform only for lecturing, but teachers are actually encouraging students to move towards knowledge creation part. And when I'm saying knowledge creation part, there should assessment needs to change, evaluation needs to change in a big way. We cannot assess whether it's proctored exam or non-proctored exam. If we are giving questions and asking them to answer those questions in the old traditional way, so then there will be a mismatch between the new kind of learning and old kind of assessment. So I believe this needs to be looked at. Maybe something which is done by IIT Goa. Though people are debating this, whether students were asked to prepare their questions and then answer those questions. So there is a good debate going on whether that model can be adopted or that model can be refined, retested, or can be changed. But I personally believe that assessment has to change looking at this new age of learning methodology. The students should be given more real life examples, project based work, peer group activities, because somehow we have taken care of cognitive learning to a large extent. But what about affective learning? What about learning which involves a lot of students, as a peer group? I think a lot of challenges are still there, and this new way of learning, this new hybrid method, blended method, has to still bring out lots of solutions to higher education institutions. And I personally see that edtech companies, technologies, asynchronous technologies, needs to gear up and deliver some very reliable and strong solutions which are easy to adopt, lower in cost, because there are a large number of institutions. Every university or every college may not be having such deep pockets to go and procure those very costly LMS systems. So maybe a model is required, a tech model is required, which can be adoptable by large number of institutions. This inequality should not be there because India is in a growing phase. We have only 26% enrollment ratio. We need to move towards 50% enrollment ratio. That's the target that we have before us. In such kind of environment, if there is huge inequality in learning, that some colleges are delivering quality education, other colleges, other students are not getting that quality education, then I believe even higher enrollments will not lead to good results. So my submission is that we are creating this blended model, we are creating this blended learning, but we need to have a lot of support from EdTech, and teachers and institutions must gear up, must train themselves to use blended learning in actual sense. This is my initial remark, Mishra ji. I'll be very happy to answer questions subsequently.
Thank you, Dr. Vikas. New learning and old assessment, beautifully put up by you. You could not have put this more beautifully, that the learning is new, but the assessment is old. And you have put very beautifully the dire requirement of creating new education systems, training of the teachers, training of the entire ecosystem, so that we all go hand in hand, adopting the new technology. We also spoke about the movement from 3%, the virtual education, from 3% last year to 100% because of the necessity caused by the COVID pandemic. And there's an old saying that necessity is the mother of all the inventions. So this would be one of the biggest takeaways of COVID pandemic, that the movement from physical to the world of digital. You raised a very pertinent point, Dr. Vikas. The problem of equal access to digital education. You have very rightfully pointed out that in the new ecosystem, in the new world of digital education, the opportunities may not be same for all the stakeholders. And this is a challenge as well as an opportunity for all the stakeholders. Either we shape up or we ship out. If we do not adapt, if we do not adopt to the new system, and if we do not inculcate the technology in our
I think there is some issue with the network.
Yeah, Mr. Mishra, your video is frozen.
No, I think there seems to be an internet problem, possibly.
Some network issue with Mishra ji.
Some network issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Maybe
think,
then we should continue. No harm, because the modus operandi is known to us. Let's request one of you to come up with your ideas.
Dr. Rao is next, to speak. I think I request Dr. Rao to share, his ideas on hybrid and blended learning. Dr. Rao, please.
Sure. So, very good afternoon to all the panelists and also the viewers that have been viewing this program across the country and possibly abroad. Being perhaps one of the last speakers, the advantage is, some of the important points, were already highlighted by Professor Sancheti and also Dr. Vikas Singh. No doubt, the COVID-19, while it has created, havoc, in certain ways it was a blessing in disguise. It has possibly helped the education to leapfrog and transform itself. In fact, education is a sector, when compared with all other sectors, possibly it was a laggard in terms of embracing the technology for the benefit of its end users, that are the students. So to that extent, I think we should take it that whatever name that we give, whether it is a blended learning or whether it is flexible learning or whatever it is, they are all the tools for that. But before I come to that, there was also another kind of a factor that has come in, that is called the Education 4.0. The Education 4.4, that's not a product of COVID-19 at all. The Education 4.0 is linked with the Industry 4.0, and this is being sort of talked of for the last at least 4 to 5 years. For the first time, this was discussed in the World Economic Forum, wherein a report was submitted saying that what is the future of jobs and how our students or the employees should be geared up to be successful in this kind of a new environment. So as a part of it, there are two aspects in that. One aspect, if we talk of as far as how to prepare our students to be successful in a new environment, one is the kind of skills and the knowledge that they have to acquire. And so much so that as per that report, so many of the jobs that are there today, a large percentage of the jobs that are there today may not even be existing after 10 years. And in 5 years, a lot of jobs will undergo changes. So to that extent, the graduates that are going to be churned out by the higher education, typically, like in fact, these graduates, they take anywhere between 2 years to 4 years, or sometimes even 6 years by the time the product comes out. So right now we have to see what these graduates will be doing, will be required to do, and what are the competencies that they will have. So that's what it brings to the question as to, before we talk of technology, before we talk of whether it is a blended or any other technology, it is important to decide and to discuss what is that they should learn, and how to learn is the second aspect into that. Because for anything what we do in life, we have to see what is to be done. Then we see the mechanics of how to do that. As far as the what part is concerned, typically, if you see the kind of the teaching, learning that has been going on traditionally for a long time it has been essentially, we teach certain things and we evaluate the students on the basis of their recall. And at the most, we ask them, please explain. So if you look at the Bloom's taxonomy, when he talked of the 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy, these are at the lowest levels. The recall, explain. And after that, what is the next? You got to analyze. Then after that, you must be able to sort of do some synthesis. Then after that, I must be able to do some creative work. Various studies have shown that most of the students that we churn out, particularly from the Indian higher education, at the best they are at the first 2 levels. A few possibly in some of the education systems, it could be in the third. One of the gaps has been like we are unable to kind of produce the kind of graduates that can sort of synthesize and create new things. That is what is required sort of for the future jobs. If you take the Googles of the world, you take the Microsofts of the world, you take all these new companies that are there, for the product development, they require that profile of the people, not just the coders and the programmers into that. So that is where we have to embrace the kind of, as far as the teaching, learning, and evaluation is concerned, this has to be synchronized and aligned with whatever we call as the 6 kind of a levels of learning what we have been talking of. That is as per the Bloom's taxonomy. I think it's time that we should sort of move on to that. That is one part. The second part is possibly in fact our earlier pedagogies that we have been adopting, maybe for whatever reasons, maybe we were unable to kind of fulfill that. That's where embracing the technology will go a long way to make us sort of nearer to that. Not only to see that the students can build these skills, not only that, a lot of students believe that when once they become a graduate, oh, that's the end of the world for me. After that, I have to do the job. But as per the report of the future of jobs, there has to be lifelong learning. So that is where I think, as far as the students are concerned, on one hand, we must be able to sort of tell them what is there to learn, and we should also prepare them for a lifelong learning right now. Not that I'm content with what we are doing into that. Now, coming to as far as the technology part is concerned, like today, thanks to these technologies, like in fact, it is possible that the students, like today, what happens is sort of a lot of still people are writing on the board. From there, sort of there are some people that have just moved into using the PPTs. That's it. And if you see in the last 15 months, there are lots of organizations that stuck onto that. Whatever they have been teaching in the class, they are using either WhatsApp or using a video conferencing. This is where a blended kind of the learning, or maybe whatever be the name that we give, that is amenable to see that yes, some part of the course material or study material we must be in a position to give to the students so that at their convenience they can go through all that material. So that is when they come to the class can be used for something like an activity-based learning or a discussion or peer-based learning into that. That is where these new technologies can be used, so that the students are better equipped onto that. That's where, in fact, Professor Sancheti also has mentioned, because when we talk of education, it's not limited to concepts, applications, but also lots of hands-on things, particularly in terms of engineering. That is where the virtual labs come in handy, sort of using the virtual labs in combining with a blended learning. And that's where in fact today, making use of the learning management systems, it is possible to give the kind of content to the students so that they can learn and use a discussion, so that we can move up as far as the kind of learning ladder is concerned. And then another thing I just want to mention to you is, like, these 15 months was a great opportunity for our university. Our university, we are based out of Jharkhand in Ranchi. Typically, all of our students, they come mostly from Bihar, Jharkhand, and neighboring states. They all come from, most of them from villages. A lot of them are first-time learners. For these students, like last year, in the COVID wave 1, we started this kind of a digital learning platform, wherein we created a platform called Swadhyay. This is built around the blended learning model. We have used the Moodle for that. There, all of our faculty members and all the disciplines, we have trained them, set up a complete infrastructure, facilitated. With the result, we have created not less than 7,500 pieces of digital content of various types. This is something that students are in a position to kind of go through that in as per the kind of convenience. Then next day we run the classes, and for such of the students that are unable to attend the class because of internet, these things we record and show it to them. And this is
Professor
something.
Rao, I would request you to conclude.
I'm through.
We are
I'm
running
through.
short of time.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I'm the last one, so that
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you.
Yeah. So I think this is something what has sort of experimented and worked out. Our learning out of this is more than the technology investments. What is required for the transformation of education is training and facilitating our teachers. We realize that students are there; they can learn very fast. But our sort of teachers need to be trained and they have to be facilitated. And the technologies, and if you look at the technology adoption models, two cardinal things. The technology must be easy to use. Technology must sort of convince a user that it is going to give me benefits. I think these are the two things that a technology provider has to take care into that. Sort of thank you very much for having given me the opportunity to share some thoughts from my side. Sort of thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Very well said and very relevant points from what to teach first, then how to teach. I'll come back to you, Professor Rao, because we are running short of time now. We have got 3 board speakers here. Let me quickly invite Mr. Ravindra Yatagiri. Ravindra is Vice President, IT and eLearning from the University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun, Uttarakhand. Over to you, Mr. Ravindra.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. What Dr. Vikas and Dr. Sancheti has spoken about, we are actually practicing in the university since 2015. So our university, since inception, we are using LMS My Model. So all our faculty are trained digitally how to conduct classes, how to upload the content, and technology-enabled learning we are practicing since inception of this university. And from 2015, we have a step ahead. We have taken a leap by implementing Blackboard. The purpose of implementing Blackboard in the university is to practice blended learning. And what we have done is, first we have stabilized the platform, we have implemented, then we have introduced blended learning to all of our faculty. What we have done is, we, instead of creating all the courses in the blended learning, we picked up some faculty and few courses. We trained the faculty in the blended learning concepts, how to design courses in the blended learning. We trained all of few faculty and made those faculty the champions to implement blended learning in the courses identified. And once this success we've seen with the few courses, then we have year on year, we trained all of our faculty and the students orientation. We have given the orientation to the students as well on the platform. And these are continuous workshops that we started doing till now. We do this practice of blended learning workshops and the Blackboard workshops, how to work on LMS, how to engage students online, how to create content. So these are the workshops that we do continuously so that, faculty are equipped with the digital technology. And also they'll be, we have a support system in terms of IT. If there is any faculty who, not able to equipped with the technology and all, we train those particular faculty with special hand-on-hand sessions. And what we have done in the university is also we have created a studio where the faculty can come and record those lectures in the university, and these lectures are integrated on the Blackboard. So the asynchronous content that we are talking about, it is not only the live lectures, that synchronous lectures, we are doing it on the online. The student already has the pre-learning content which is already been recorded by the faculty. We have uploaded that course in the courses on the Blackboard. So once the student has logged in into the Blackboard, he can see the course structure, the course content, what he is going to learn, and the content that has been already given to him. It's already there with the student. And LMS has become a central learning tool for all of our activities in the academic learning space. And what we have also done is, we have taken the technology tools like Raptivity, Articulate, Storyline, Captivate, Camtasia. So, and we have trained some of our faculty also in these tools so that, and we have given those licenses to the faculty, they can create those e-learning content by the faculty itself. And some of the faculty, they have created voiceover PowerPoint presentations, and using these tools, gamifications we have introduced in the learning content. So before this pandemic arose, we are already practicing these tools and technologies are already in place. So when this COVID has arisen, we didn't have any, shifting to online was a really easy walk for all of our faculty, because even when the university was closed, since our students are also equipped with the infrastructure. And one more important point is, all the students, the incoming students, the existing students, we always, earlier we used to give laptops to the students so that these they can work on the LMS when the faculty is giving outside of the classrooms any assessments or assignments. If the faculty is providing, they should be able to do it sitting in their hostels or at home. and uploading those assignments and all. So we made it compulsory and mandatory for all the students to carry a good configuration laptop, because that is very important component, for digital teaching and learning. Because if the student doesn't have a laptop, then they cannot learn anything from their mobiles and the small screens or anything. So they should be equipped with that laptop and an internet connection. Otherwise, these digital tech learning will not take place. So these are some of the challenges we have already addressed before the student is coming inside the campus. So when the student is coming, so we already have the student is coming with a laptop, and university is providing them the internet connection, and the infrastructure is laid down for the digital learning in the campus. So today we are 25% of our courses in all the schools we have converted into a blended learning mode, and 25% of our courses are available on the LMS. And the workshop model type also we do conduct, because we use the Blackboard, leverage Blackboard for our most of our teaching and learning. So what we do is, for the workshop type classes, we divide the students into groups virtually on the Blackboard Collaborate. Blackboard Collaborate as a wonderful tool of breakout groups, where the students can be divided dynamically or predefined, and the faculty used to, the business case studies, they used to divide them into the groups and give them, elaborate them the idea to discuss upon. And wherever the necessity is there, the faculty used to chip into those sessions, give their inputs, let them brainstorm among themselves, and bring them all together into the main course room and present their viewpoint to the faculty and to the other students. So we are practicing these digital technologies and digital learning from since inception of this university. So whether the pandemic or no pandemic, so we are already there in this space, practicing these technologies, training our faculty. We have a workshops, and on the LMS also, we have created these training modules for our faculty. So when a new faculty is coming in, they can go in to those training modules, learn on their own, and then we have a hands-on session with the faculty, and we create these workshops for the faculty so that they can get into the mainstream of the teaching what the university is practicing. So this is the I thank our university visionaries to have have these digital technologies well in place, because now in the COVID, I've seen many of the universities, they're just trying to create online class, what is happening in the face-to-face into the online space. So the student is sitting all the 8 hours in the class, attending the lectures, which is really monotonous for the student. And also the technological challenges with internet bandwidth, they're consuming most of the bandwidth on the internet, and not getting the right environment also in the home where they are residing to listen and practice what the faculty is saying. So asynchronous content is very important. Yeah. So asynchronous content is very important, for the self-learning of the student, so that whether and in the main synchronous sessions, the constructive can take place with the student. So this is what we are practicing, and I will be happy to announce any questions that you have.
Yeah, thank you. I hope we'll have sufficient time. In fact, we'll extend around by 5 or 10 minutes the session. A very interesting topic and very interesting discussions going on. Heartening to know that UPS is one of the better placed universities in terms of deployment of adequate IT and digital infrastructure, as well as its focus on constant learning and training and development of its faculty. Good to know all your equipments like LMS, implementing Blackboard, introduction to blended learning, studio, and all those things which you are mentioning. So quickly now I move on to the last speaker of this panel discussion, last but not the least. He is a special guest from Japan, Mr. Nick Benwell, a senior solutions engineer from Blackboard based out of Japan. Mr. Nick Benwell.
Thank you.
Your views on the blended technology and the future.
Absolutely, and I will keep this very brief because I realize we do need to move on to the questions. Everyone has a wealth of experience that they would like to share. Quick congratulations to Elets for your successful move into the online event space. Great job, guys. And I'm going to start by taking us back a year to April of 2020, and this was the beginning of the pandemic period. And at that time, as a technology provider, as a services provider to educational institutions around the world, we started to see some amazing statistics coming out from the usage of our tools. We had, for example, a 3,600% increase in the use of our virtual classroom. We also saw a 400% increase in the use of our learning management system. And the unprecedented usage of these technologies really showed us that we were moving into a different world. For many years, we've been talking about the benefits of maybe blended approaches to learning or moving classes into a hybrid model. But all of a sudden, the faculties from all universities, colleges, schools around the world were being forced into the online space. There really was no choice. So as a services provider, and I really have to come back to Professor Sancheti's comment about appropriate technologies here, because this has been one of the key words that has been on our mind for many years is appropriate technology. It's not just about taking technology and throwing it willy-nilly into an educational environment. This serves no purpose. What it is about is providing not only appropriate technologies for the needs of the faculty or the students or the institution, but also providing the relevant services that support those additional needs around the technologies. So I might give the example, a couple of examples. One would be one of our solutions called Blackboard Ally, which is an accessibility tool. And this actually helps to deal with that equity of access to information in the online learning environment by providing alternate formats of content for students to be able to download and engage with. So you could have a written document and the students would be able to download an audio version of that document that would allow them to listen to written content on the go. Okay, superbly helpful for maintaining that equity of access to online materials. Another example of the solutions that we've provided is not a technology solution, but rather an enablement solution, something we call the Digital Teaching and Learning Service. And this is a three-part program that we can either deliver to institutions or enable institutions to deliver to other institutions that really helps to train your faculty in these online pedagogies. And so many of the speakers today have already spoken about this, the need to kind of rethink, reimagine our approaches to education, to assessment, and course design as well, such an important part of this modern day approach to education. So, you know, from the provider, from the educational technology and services providing side, we are very keen to provide a holistic suite of solutions that support. There is no one correct way of doing that. I think we could probably all agree on that. There are varied approaches and methodologies. Some are in trial, some have been proven to work, but we're very keen to support as much as we can this wide range of approaches by our clients around the world. So with that, I'll stop there and allow us to move on with this panel discussion. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Benwell, for this very precise, brief, and to the point talk. You mentioned, in fact, you quoted Professor Sancheti that the time has gone now that we should talk about technology. Now is the time for discussing appropriate technology, a very relevant term. So quickly, we have got some time. I'll like to have some questions, quick questions. Professor Sancheti, my only request that the answer should not exceed maximum 1 or 2 minutes. There are a couple of questions on my screens. If I can read one, how will the universities and higher education institutes manage to overcome regulatory, financial, and cultural obstacles to implement its digital practices? So your views, Professor Sancheti, the regulatory, financial, and cultural. obstacles to implementing digital transformation?
I'll first say answer the financial part because it's the most important and defining one.
Most important,
And let me
yes.
tell you, once you have technology in your hand, technology is a tool. I sometimes call it as a slave, or some people may go to extreme, call it as a donkey, which will keep working for you when you are sleeping. And that's how it works 24/7, reduces the cost. Technology has always cut down the cost, and technology has made the world a small village. Now studying from a Stanford professor sitting here in India in remote corner is very easy, both in terms of cost, time, questioning him. If I'm in a class of 100, I'll hardly get any chance to question, but here I can keep typing, keep putting it on the chat, or do various things which are there. Professor can also see me. What I'm basically trying to say is technology is an answer to everything, provided we are ready. When it comes to implementation, the last part I'd like to say that it is our mindset. When NEP has come, as I told you, immediately after COVID, the NEP came. NEP empowered us. NEP said we will use technology. NEP said we'll use blended. NEP also said that we will do many other things in open and distance mode. And therefore, it is for a learner or for an institution to decide. So we have to use our autonomy, our control, our directioning to the hilt to make sure it happens. No one is going to come and serve it to us on platter saying, hey, here it is, use it. No, it is for us to decide what we want to use. Let me tell you to all my friends who might have asked this question, that this cannot be stopped unless you yourself have a mindset where it will not work for you. So that's my answer to this question.
Thank you. Dr. Sancheti. My next question for Dr. Vikas Singh. Dr. Vikas mentioned about the inequalities in the new digital ecosystem. Dr. Vikas, although it was a very relevant point, what would be your message for those who are slow to adapt to this new system? And what are the challenges there? Of course, everybody would like to become tech savvy and digital savvy, but there must have been some challenges. So in your views, some quick solutions to those challenges and the way forward. Please unmute yourself, Dr. Vikas.
Professor Sancheti has very rightly said there is no regulatory challenge before us because new education policy is actually giving us the way to move in that direction. Blended learning, LMS, all this is allowed now, kind of thing. And also there is no cultural obstacle or cultural challenge. Maybe language can be a challenge that you can have some teachers who are good in English speaking, students good in speaking English. Some might not be that good, but they might be good in their own vernacular or mother tongue. So that's again not a challenge. Financial challenge, yes, is there because every institution may not be having, as I mentioned in my initial talk, deep pockets to buy LMS, buy Blackboard, subscribe to Blackboard or other such platforms. My point is that new education policy is giving tremendous autonomy to students also. So it's not a matter of choice anymore now. You cannot have an education system which is not adopting these technologies or using these technologies. The students are going to demand this, because they will be looking at their friends. So what Ravindra ji is saying, might have been an isolated case of UPS that they were using but now it's a given thing. Now you can no more say that only UPS is there, which is providing this kind of facility. Now every institution, because their students are going to talk to their peer group, talk to their friends and find out what kind of facilities are extended in those systems, those universities. So it's a autonomy is now moving towards the students. Every institution must need to address the financial and other challenge and must adopt technology. This is my thing. Otherwise it will be difficult for them to attract students and sustain their system. They need to either adopt technology or they will go into oblivion. They will no more be existing for the students as a choice. That's my take on this.
Thank you, Dr. Vikas. Mr. Ravindra Yatagiri, although you mentioned about very good IT infrastructure in
Mr. Mishra, I lost you.
Yeah.
Looks like we have lost him right now.
Yeah. These are some of the technological challenges that when we come across digital learning.
My
There is
apologies.
no life
So
without
sorry
challenge,
today.
sir.
This is
Right,
one of the
right.
technological challenges we are all trying to. My apologies. Second time it has happened. So I was talking to Mr. Ravindra Yatagiri that in the hybrid scenario, there are two scenarios. One is a one-to-one classroom physical mode of learning, and another is a self mode of online learning. So going forward, what would be your views on hybrid learning era?
See, going forward, it is asynchronous content. Once the faculty needs to develop that content, the tools need to be provided by the institutes. The infrastructure, first of all, need to be created by the institute. To have these facilities given to both the faculty and to the students as well. Because if that infrastructure and platform is not there, faculty will not be able to do anything. So it is on the responsibility of the institutions to come up with that kind of infrastructure to facilitate digital teaching and learning, so that and then encourage the faculty to create these kind of offline sessions, and that they can upload it onto the LMS so that the student self-learning can take place. Then the technological challenges that we are coming across, like when you're having a live session, suddenly the net connection might be dropped down from at any point, whether it is from the faculty who is teaching or the student who is attending the class. But this technology will help the students. If you have already created those lessons and upload it on the LMS, the slow learners also would get opportunity to learn again and again, so that they understand the concept well, and if they have any questions, doubts, they can raise it on the LMS, and the faculty can address those questions. And lastly, I've heard, the institute, the UGC has recommended that, 50% of the strength you can operate the university. So what we have done is, we have taken the leverage of the technology. If the students are willing to come to the university and attend the campus, those who do not have this kind of infrastructure, they can come and attend to the classes. And those who have the technology well in place, they can attend from their homes. So we have created that, tested with our technology. So to accommodate both the in-class student and as well as the student who wants to attend remotely, so that both of them can have the same lecture at the same time. So going forward, my take is, institutes need to adopt LMS, need to adopt technology. They have to give that infrastructure training to their faculty, so that these things can be taken place. This digital teaching and can be easily be embraced by all the faculty as well as the students.
Thank you, Mr. Ravinder. Going forward, Mr. Nick Benwell, although we have been discussing about hybrid mode of learning, does it also imply a hybrid mode of teaching?
Absolutely, and this was a really interesting question. As I noticed in our discussion board just here, we've recently, last week, concluded an event in Europe, the Teaching and Learning Conference for Blackboard users in Europe, and we had users from across the EMEA region sharing their ideas and their concerns and their approaches and their solutions to the many challenges of moving into this fully online or blended hybrid approach to teaching and learning. And it occurs to those users, as it occurs to me, that with this move to online, with this move to hybrid approaches to teaching and learning, we obviously have to have these new approaches to areas, as was mentioned earlier, such as assessment. And one of our colleagues was talking about the need for authentic assessment. For example, authentic assessment being not just written paper-based assessments, not just multiple choice quizzes, but actually perhaps using a video to capture the students performing some sort of activity, demonstrating a certain sort of skill, doing a presentation. These authentic skills-based assessments that really demonstrate, and this is kind of coming back to Education 4.0, the skills that they will need moving forward, right? And so we do need the ability to kind of step out of that traditional framework, that traditional pedagogical framework, and explore what the possibilities are that technology opens up to us. However, as one of them also noticed, one of the big challenges for certain subjects is that those subjects are accredited by accrediting bodies, and those accrediting bodies really hold the keys to the gate on the types of assessments that can be performed. So if the accrediting bodies agree to allow these sort of new hybrid approaches to teaching, these new hybrid pedagogies, if they're supportive of this, then certainly it would be easier for institutions to implement these approaches. But without a kind of general consensus of support, it's very difficult for faculty members or institutions to move ahead fully with this approach to teaching and learning.
Thank you, Mr. Benwell. I'm totally out of time now. This link will go off in next 2 minutes. Otherwise, I would have loved to ask one question to Professor Rao as well, but I am extremely sorry we don't have now time. So I will request my backend team to start. Please start the certificate process. A very interesting discussion here. We spoke about the technologies and the way forward in the world of hybrid learning. So this certificate of speaker is for Dr. Sandeep Sancheti, Provost of Marwadi, Rajkot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for putting your point so well. Next certificate is for Professor Dr. Vikas Singh, Vice Chancellor, ITM University, Raipur. Thank you, Dr. Vikas.
Thank you so much.
We have this certificate for Professor O.R.S. Rao, Vice Chancellor, ICFAI University, Ranchi, Jharkhand. Thank you, Professor Rao. Then we have Mr. Ravindra Yatagiri, who shared his perspective on the topic, Vice President, IT and e-learning, University of Petroleum and Energy, Dehradun.
Thank you so much.
Finally, we had from the industry, Mr. Nick Benwell, Senior Solutions Engineer, Blackboard. Thank you, Mr. So it was a very interesting discussion. We'll keep continuing these discussions going forward also. The deliberations will keep on going tomorrow as well as day after tomorrow. The future of learning would be truly exciting now going forward, from education 1.0 to education 4.0, as rightly mentioned by Professor Sancheti, Dr. Vikas, and Professor Rao. Thank you all of you once again for joining us at 19th edition of World Education Summit. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Namaskar. Bye.
Namaskar.